Now, it is my absolute privilege to introduce this morning our preacher today. And there's a bit of a backstory to this. Shall I give them the honest truth, Steve?
Yep.
Yeah, the honest truth. So Steve is in charge, if you don't know, he's in charge of our overseas missions focus. And this guy is doing a phenomenal job in that space. Would you agree? Absolutely amazing. The whole profile is lifted to a whole new level, Steve, and you've kind of just gone with it. And we're so grateful for who you are. But today, you're not preaching about missions. No. This is Steve walking on water. This is stepping out of the boat, mate. And we're so grateful for you and your family. Thank you for what you're going to share today.
Awesome. No worries.
Have a great time.
Thanks, mate. Am I on? Yes, I am. Can you hear me okay, guys? You didn't get my water, Paul. All right.
Hang on, mate. Open it for you.
Thank you. I'll have the table as well, please. Oh. Bit hard being a Warriors fan this morning, guys, and I do actually endorse... Are you a Broncos fan, are you? Yeah, true, okay. And look, anyone, well, good luck next week, mate, because I do hope they give the Panthers a good run. I'm not a Panthers fan, so I hope so. Well, if you're wrong, I'll roast you next week. When they do come in at 11, guys, I will point them out that they are late, and we can all turn around and give them a bit of a hard time. Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Steve Hills, and you are right, I'm out of comfort zone today, speaking on building a faith that won't give up. And I guess many of us, but not all, we're all guilty of learning key verses of our Bible that we fail to retain to learn life lessons. So what I'm hoping today is that everything I say, I actually aim at myself. Not at you, at myself. But what I hope is that God convicts me and you to take away the encouragement that the Canaanite woman will share with us in Matthew 15, 21 to 28. Paul started last week. He's a tough act to follow, but I'll give it a good go. God has taken me on a journey as I've prepared for today in the last few weeks. This is a sermon that doesn't rest fully on missions, but I could link it back really easy if I wanted to. But I'm not going to. But as I read about the Canaanite woman, the revelation of what God wanted to say to me came screaming through about how my faith will be tested, how I will experience silence, and what that silence means, and how I need to press through that silence so my faith will be fortified. But as I started to read it, I learnt it. And as I learnt it, it touched me in my heart. So God said to me, go and lead it, which is why I'm standing here today. And Oliver Wendell Holmes said to me, don't leave this earth without playing the music inside of me. And this is one of those moments. But whilst thinking about today, and I work in the dark arts of insurance, and do you know, one of the things that we do with the companies we work with is we tell them about risk and balancing that against buying insurance. Did you know? We could actually give a piece of paper and just write the word faith on it to the CEO, the CFO, or the board, and simply say your insurance buying is based on faith. It's having a hope in what you can't see, but having a certainty of that. So I guess today is about me stretching out of my comfort zone, and my slides have gone off, James. No, they haven't. They've come back. Thank you. So why don't we quickly open in prayer? Lord, I just pray that you'll give everyone an open mind. And Lord, I guess my heartfelt cry today is that my Connect leader, Doug DeWitt, who is a theology of all theologists to me, that I can teach him a little something about what faith means. And if I can do that, Lord, I know my words have done okay. So give me an open heart and an open mind and the words that you want me to say. Amen. Okay, so as you can see, the title is Building a Faith That Won't Give Up. But first of all, we'll look at the faith of the Canaanite woman, but we'll also let's explore the basic meaning of what faith actually is. We all have a grasp of being faithful to something or someone or having a faith in Jesus. Now, if I was to be humorous, I would pick on Liz Shute, who's not here, so I can, that she's a Tottenham Hotspurs fan, right? And she has faith that one day her team might win something, right? Now, you and I both know that's good for a laugh, but we admire her faith in the meantime. But and wait till I say, James, to flick the slide. I always like to share an anecdote of life, because I think as a speaker, you have to publicly prepare to mature, change and grow on the stage. And no matter where you are in your faith journey, we actually learn from each other. But this story, I need faith in you as a congregation to keep me safe. But I'm also a believer that you don't let the facts get in the way of a good story. And I'm sure Kay will agree with you that this story may lack some fact. But man is a simple being, and thus we see what we see and we judge accordingly. So Kay and I are a typical couple. We disagree on the same things that you all disagree with in this particular room. But there are occasions where I think she wants to hit me with a blunt object with force, and naturally, I don't understand why, nor agree with her logic. But she is an avid reader, and very recently I was disturbed to see the following title in her hand. So my question to you as a congregation is, I need to have faith that you will keep me safe. So I guess I'm just going to deal... So, okay, we're still right here. So, so I need you to keep me safe. Now, she finished the book 3 to 4 weeks ago, and I'm still here. All right? So if I die mysteriously over the coming few weeks, the only request I have of you is that you will investigate the circumstances, and maybe someone will call the police. All right. But in the secular world, we often hear faith spoken in some simple terms. Having faith that you will succeed despite setbacks. So you may be going to university, you want to get a degree to get a good job. You may have started a new job, you want to be successful, you want to be promoted. You may be about to embark on something that you've never done before, so you hope that despite the setbacks, you'll have faith that you'll be successful. And most of us in that secular sense would do. Then we want to have faith in democracy. This isn't a political statement, but reality is we want our leaders to deliver on their promises. We want them to be good people. We also like to be a person of faith. Now, that doesn't mean in Jesus, it means in life in general. But it also means that we profess that. So there are people in this room who are generally faithful to what they do and who they know. But it's also about keeping faith with someone. And if they disappoint us or let us down, we lose faith in them. But at its general, faith actually means much the same as trust. So basically, let's have a look at Hebrews 11, chapter 11, verse 1. So faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see. So do you remember when it was your birthday when you were young? You would have been excited and anxious. You knew you would receive gifts and special treats, but some things would be a surprise. Birthdays combine assurance and anticipation, and so does faith. Faith is the conviction based on past experiences that God's new and fresh surprises will be our own. 2 words describe faith: surety and certainty. There are 2 qualities that need a secure beginning and an ending. The beginning point of faith is this: it is believing God's character. He is who He says He is. And the end point is believing in His promises. He will do what He says He will do. Now, we demonstrate that we have true faith when we believe that God will fulfill His promises, even though we don't see those promises materializing. And a good example is Noah. So Noah built the ark over 120 years. That is an astounding number of years to build a ship. Now, we will give up sometimes and be discouraged, and our faith is not fortified after 120 minutes, hours, or days. But Noah knew what he had to do. He was ridiculed, he was laughed at, he was different, but he persevered. He persevered through the doubt. He persevered through the uncertainty because he knew what he was there to do. And the rest of the story is history. And if you ever find yourself being tested, remind you of the faith journey Noah took. It won't be 120 years, but 120 days is not arduous. So then we look at our own lives. And there are circumstances where we are consistently tested and our faith. They are health issues, either ourselves or our family. They are relationships. They are family crisis. They are work, where circumstances drive what we believe God says in our Bibles. We earnestly pray in those situations for God's intervention. And we seek His support. But sometimes we do not see God working, and there is seemingly no response. And we become discouraged, angry, and disappointed. And we blame God for our circumstances. But what God is really saying, press into me. So let's have a look at the Canaanite woman. So Matthew 15, 21 to 28. Leaving that place, Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. A Canaanite woman from that vicinity came to him crying out, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is demon-possessed and suffering terribly." Jesus did not answer a word, so his disciples came to him and urged him, "Send her away, for she keeps crying out after us." He answered, I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel." The woman came and knelt before him. "Lord, help me," she said. He replied, "It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs." "Yes, it is, Lord," she said. "Even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." Then Jesus said to her, "Woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted," and her daughter was healed at that moment. So the gospel reading of Matthew 15, 21 to 28 is how God's salvation is unlimited. Although the gospel is primarily for the house of Israel, the Israelites, it is also for us, the Gentiles. So there are three themes that will come through the Canaanite woman's story. When God is silent, what is the why? Why is God silent? And when we press through the silence, it is the how. How do we press through the silence? I hate to say it, but the how is not complicated. And you know it already. I'm just going to remind you today. And then it's the faith and determination, which is the effort and the learning. And as we go through, let's consider where you think you need to step back and say, "God, I need to trust you more and press through the silence in my life for the things that I am praying for so my faith can be strengthened and fortified." Okay, so let's have a look at a map for a moment. And you can see at the top of it, you got Tyre and you got Sidon. When Paul spoke last week in Matthew 15, and I'll let you read the map at the same time, we learnt that Jesus had his normal run-in with the Pharisees and the scribes, who consistently scrutinized his actions and criticized his failure to follow the ceremonial traditions of the elders. In verse 21, he and his disciples withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon, two Mediterranean seaside villages at the top. Sidon is approximately 15 kilometres south of Beirut. Now, Matthew doesn't tell us why he retreated, but Mark does. And he wanted to spend time with the disciples. But everywhere he went down south, he was mobbed by crowds. So the time they were looking for wasn't available. And all Jesus wanted to do was spend some time with the disciples. Now, Tyre and Sidon are Phoenician cities and are famous for people in the Bible, but not necessarily those that we want to follow. So Hiram, king of Tyre, was the one who sent the trees from the wood from the trees of Lebanon to actually build David's palace and the temple for Solomon. We also know that Jezebel was also a daughter of a king from the same region. So they were Canaanite cities. But what's interesting is that when Joshua defeated and actually allocated the land to the tribes, Tyre and Sidon were allocated to the, to the tribe of Asher. But they didn't take it. So they remained Canaanite cities. So one of the things I've always struggled with, and some of you guys are biblical scholars, you remember everything you're told. What is a Gentile? What is a Canaanite? And what is an Israelite? Well, a Gentile is a person who is not Jewish. It is us. The word stems from the Hebrew term goy, which basically means a nation and was applied to both the Hebrew and other nations. The plural goyim is essentially nations of the world that are not Hebrew. Now, we know that Jesus was sent to save God's chosen people. Now, we know then that they were going to be charged in the Great Commission, Matthew 28, to then deliver the message to us as the Gentiles. But the Canaanites, they were people who lived in the land of Canaan. The Canaanites are best known from biblical accounts. They portrayed as a hostile, pre-Israelite indigenous population residing in the Promised Land, and they were conquered by the tribes of Israel under the leadership of Joshua. And then we have the Israelites. The Israelites were, quite simply, God's chosen people, the 12 tribes of Israel. So then we go back to Matthew 15, 21 to 28. And we see at the top, the Canaanite woman from that vicinity came to him crying out, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is demon-possessed and suffering terribly." This is the cry of distress. Every mother here understands the pain of suffering of a child, and we want to replace them with us anytime. But there is something significant about this woman's address, "Lord, Son of David." She does not use the word rabbi, teacher, or master. She says Son of David. In doing so, she gives Jesus a messianic title. She is saying, "Messiah, have mercy on me." Now, we know from biblical accounts that there are many Jews who would struggle when Jesus was on earth to actually understand that Jesus is the Messiah. But this Canaanite woman, who's probably never heard Jesus speak before, gets it straight away, and she is dialed in. Yet, we see in verse 23, Jesus does not answer a word. Our instant reaction is, what a roadblock. Why is Jesus doing this? Because we know the goodness of Jesus and the things he can do. And here he is ignoring the woman's cries and pleas for help. But there are two things that count against this Canaanite woman. One is she's a Canaanite, and we know that the relationship with the Jews was not good, but also she is a woman. And women in those days, as we know, the culture and the rules of the day meant that women didn't have the same standing as men. So basically, the rabbis would simply ignore women and not listen to them. But in this situation, she was a Gentile. And the Jews saw other Gentiles as unworthy to be saved, yet they saw themselves as worthy. But you know what? This woman wasn't going to let adversity get in the way. She would have known she was a woman. She would have known she wasn't a Jew, but she was asking the Lord to save her daughter. When we read the verse 2, it's interesting to remind ourselves that the things we see Jesus do on earth is also what God does. So how Jesus responds is how God responds. And also, we know that Jesus and God, they are compassionate. They are healers of the sick. And it's the heart of God that is prevalent here. But sometimes God just needs us to trust him. And sometimes there are times when we don't hear a response immediately. Jesus hasn't said a word. But sometimes in our own prayers, God doesn't answer us. And we also know from the Psalms that the psalmist would often cry out, "Lord, where are you?" So what do we do in that situation? When we don't listen to the silence, we let the silence speak against what we know. And this is really important because we let the silence tell us a lie. We let the silence lie to our spirit. We let the silence tell us what is not in the Bible. So basically we talk, we get disappointed, we get angry, and we start to walk. And what we basically do is we close our Bible and we say, life is busy. I've got other things to do. My children keep me active. I'll skip church today. I'll skip Connect Group. I'll just carry on because we are disappointed. We are angry. The timelines of God answering our prayer haven't been met. So emotionally we're disconnecting. And what we do is fundamentally we start to see God differently. And we believe the lie. So the example of this slide for me is, what if Pon did that? Every time there was a silence, every time Jeanette got a silence, over 35 years, what if she got disappointed and walked? What if she closed her Bible? What if Pon decided to shut her church? So they are great examples of a woman who haven't done that. So the message today is, don't let the silence speak against what you know. Now, there's some biblical evidence that God wants us to press in. So Paul wrote in his second letter to the Corinthians and cited a physical infirmity that he didn't want. He called it a thorn in the flesh. But Paul does not tell us what the actual thorn is. But it could have been malaria. But he makes a reference to the Galatians about a disease of the eye. So let's put it into perspective. Paul went to God 3 times and asked God to remove the infliction. On the first time, it didn't happen. But what we do know, it was chronic, it was painful, and it was interrupting his work. So on the first occasion, God doesn't remove the infliction. Let's presume there is silence. On the second occasion, he pleads, and it doesn't get removed. But then we know that Paul pressed in and continued to pray. So in 2 Corinthians 12, Paul tells us on his third request, God told him about the thorn in the flesh. God told him it was to keep Paul from being conceited. And God said to Paul, my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. So what he was saying to Paul, you don't need me to remove the infliction for me to be powerful in you. You don't need to be whole for my words to speak, but you need to press. I'm not saying I won't remove the infliction. All I'm saying is that I'm taking you on a journey, and I'm not going to remove it just yet, because you know why? God wanted to keep Paul's feet on the ground. He was blessed with amazing revelation, and human nature as it is, sometimes we can lift ourselves above God. Now, I accept when I read that how would Paul do that? The number one man in the Bible would lift himself above God. But God wanted to make sure. But you know what? It's giving us a life lesson. It's telling us what we need to do. I'm not saying that people with inflictions in this room don't get healed. I'm not going anywhere near that. All I'm saying is that we're dealing with perseverance. We're dealing with fortifying faith. We're dealing with the fact that Noah built the ark over 120 years, so in 120 minutes our prayer may not be answered. It's perseverance. And I'm talking to myself as much as I'm talking to you. So how did the Canaanite woman press in? So the disciples say in verse 23, send her away because she keeps crying after us. In the Greek, it suggests that the disciples were actually referring, send her away satisfied. She was being a pain in the backside. They didn't want her there. They wanted to spend time with Jesus, and she was interrupting. She was bugging them. So the disciples said, just give her what she wants. But then, what does Jesus say? He says, I was only sent to the lost sheep of Israel. Wow, what a roadblock. So first of all, he's silent. And then he says, I was only sent to the lost sheep of Israel. So, not my problem, you know. And the disciples want her gone. So basically, Jesus wasn't annoyed, but the disciples were. Now, what does it mean, I was only sent to the lost sheep of Israel? Well, we know that Jesus was sent for his chosen people. God put him on earth for the chosen people. Now, God's plan at this stage is Jesus is going to be rejected at some point, and he will be crucified, and the disciples will be charged with then making disciples of all nations. But right now, he's only been sent to the lost sheep of Israel. So God's master plan is in action. But do you know what? This Canaanite woman doesn't give a hoot about a master plan. She's got a daughter who's inflicted with devil. She wants her daughter healed. So God's master plan is great, but she's not going to be discouraged. She's not going to be put off. She could have been offended. She could have said at that point, fine, go to the house of Israel. I don't care. I'll go somewhere else. But you know what? She knew that the only person that could save her daughter was Jesus. And it's like two scenarios. If person A is someone you know, won't help, selfish, self-centered, you're not going to go and ask them for help. But if you know a God who is loving, compassionate for you and loves you, you're going to go and ask that person. And you're going to ask them again and again and again. And you're not going to be discouraged. But then, in verse 25, I think it is, so the woman came back and knelt before him and said, Lord, help me, she said. And what is interesting about this part is she's crying out to God. Now, my personal view, and it's only a personal opinion, I wonder whether Jesus is being deliberate. He wanted her faith to be fortified, because this is a lesson for all mankind to persevere. That you don't give up on the first code of silence. You don't give up on the first it didn't happen, but you carry on. And there's a really good story in Luke 11, 5 to 10. And Jesus teaches the disciples about prayer. And basically what it is, a man goes to a friend's house at midnight. Children are asleep, he's asleep, bangs on the door and says, yeah, he did. Basically, I need some bread and I need some water. I have a friend arriving on a journey. It's midnight. Can you help? And the friend will say, my door is locked. We're in bed. No, I won't help you. But what Jesus basically says, the pure audacity of the request, he will give him the bread. It's not because he's a friend, but this idiot has turned up at midnight asking for bread. So the audacity of the request will get answered. So Jesus says, so I say to you, ask and it will be given to you. Can you turn me off for a second? And Jesus says, so I say to you, ask and it will be given to you, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be opened for you. Everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and the one who knocks, the door will be opened. This is why Jesus wanted the Canaanite woman to press in. So what does it take for you to press in? But then Jesus said something that's even more off-putting. He said, it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. And I had to step back and say, what is he saying? Jesus called her a dog? What does it mean? Well, it means this. He wasn't being cruel. He was just stating a fact. As parents, we don't take the food of the table and give it to the dogs for our children. And that's all he's saying. It's not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. Again, another roadblock. He doesn't respond. Then he says he's here for the children of Israel. Now he's saying she's a dog and doesn't deserve anything. But this is where she steals the show. Because what does she say? Yes, it is, Lord. Even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. And what's incredible about that is she's actually exemplifying God's power, because she knows that to heal her daughter, she only needs a crumb. So basically it says, effectively, she declares his power. What a faith that won't give up. She is telling Jesus, the Messiah, that he has more than enough mercy, grace, and love, care and power and help to fix the children of Israel, her daughter and her. And she needs but a crumb. Just a crumb. And so Jesus responds, woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted, and her daughter was healed at that moment. What an amazing story of God is saying to us, I may say no, I may not answer, but I want you to press in and persevere. And I know all of you in this room have had these situations, and you've prayed and you've prayed and you've prayed. God is telling you you're on the wrong track. You're on the right track. You're on the right track. Don't give up. And let's look at some scenarios as to how the Canaanite woman was like Jesus. The first was she was born into low status as a Canaanite. But so was Jesus. He was the son of a carpenter. And we know in Matthew, I think it's Matthew, yeah, it is Matthew, that when he went back, the people of the village couldn't believe that the wisdom of Jesus, isn't he the son of Mary and Joseph? Isn't he just a carpenter? What does he know? The Canaanite woman the same. The second is she didn't come to Jesus for herself, but on behalf of somebody else whom she knew needed help. Jesus came to earth on behalf of us and suffered the ultimate sacrifice. The third, that she was willing to make herself uncomfortable and uneasy to achieve her mission. We know that Jesus was never comfortable on earth. We know that Jesus was ridiculed, he was mocked, and ultimately crucified. And when she could have taken offense, she humbled herself even more, and Jesus, he was rejected throughout his mission. Pause there, and let's give you a Thailand update. So we have some prayer that's needed. So as you guys know, we've been looking for a people resource. We have found potentially, and this is very potential, a 28-year-old Bible college student. His name, I think, Jeanette, where you are, it's a Thai name boy, or has he got a Thai name that relates to that in English? Nickname, okay. I've seen a photo of him. He's a fine young man. He really is. He looks awesome. He's attended Bible college for 3 years in Thailand, but he wants to complete his master's over the next 2 years. He preached at Ponds Church last weekend. He would be able to attend weekends. Is he an investment now for the future? So why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because we have been praying for a resource, and we know that the chances of someone wanting to be in Westset is quite slim. This young man has come out of nowhere. If he goes back to Bible college to do his master's, he could still come in the weekends. He could still come every couple of weeks. So I guess what I'm sowing a seed for you today is that we may have a potential answer to our resource scenario. You will make the decision, not me. But this young man is about church planting. This young man is about making a difference. This young man is what Pon has been looking for. And maybe we need to think about, do we think the investment going forward back into Bible college to do as masters is the right thing? So what the elders have agreed, subject to church approval, is that $10,000 has been put into the 2024 budget. So that is saying, provided you agree at the time of setting the budget, that $10,000 is allocated to fund resource for Pon in Thailand in the form of people. So pray, guys, pray earnestly. He's gone to pray. I don't know if it's the answer. I'm like you, I'm sort of thinking, what is the right thing to do? But God will tell us. This young man's come across our path. For what it's worth, 9th to the 14th of July 2024 is the week that we're going to Thailand next year. The weather is warm, but it's prior to any rainy season, but we'll get some rain. We've got a great little team coming together. I think it'll be an amazing trip. And I know, what hit me is, I know some of you worry about certain times of the year in Thailand. It's too hot, too wet, whatever the case might be. But you know what? I just sort of went through the Canaanite woman's story and I say, who cares? So what? Well, it's hot, it's hot. Just get under the shade. If it's raining, put a brolly up. So, if you're kind of thinking that, I've got to go in the right season, that plays in my ears, by the way, not you. You've got to go in the right season. I say to you, well, you'll go to London when it's cold, when it's -4. You go ski the Alps in Europe when it's whatever. You'll go to South America and climb a mountain in Peru and it's hot as heck. But you won't come to Thailand because it's wet and hot. So I'll just leave that. We've got a good team, so I'm not complaining. But I just challenge anyone that suggests that the weather's going to be the reason you shouldn't go. All right, let's move on. I want to finish on this because I've gone half an hour. Let's finish on James. And what does he say? Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know, and the band can come up now. Do you see that? Where the band is? Where are they? You've got to read the small print, that's it. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds. It's because I can never remember to ask them. Because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. So let's remind ourselves, what did God say to Paul? My grace is sufficient for you. In weakness, my power is exemplified. What is James saying to us? James is saying that God won't always answer. God might be silent. Press in, persevere, be fortified, read, understand, pray harder, but let perseverance finish its work. So if you are on a journey, and we all are, and there are things that you are wanting God to do, then today is an opportunity. I don't know if you've got a song or not, but I'll let you sort that out. But I want you to do one of two things. If you want to come down and pray this side, and you just want to have a moment with God, where it's just you and your journey and your thing, and you're looking for strength, you're looking for power, you're looking for wisdom, you're looking for help, you're looking for guidance, but you just want to publicly say, God, I will persevere in this time of trouble or whatever, then come down and pray. If you want to pray over this side, and there's lots of people who can pray for you, if you want to actually make a statement to God that I understand from the Canaanite woman what she did, and I'm going to follow her example, adversity is not going to put me off, come down this side. If you want to pray in your seat, that's cool. But if you want to pray with someone, you don't have to reveal it all, but someone to pray for you, then come down this side. But let's take one thing away today, that perseverance, trials and tests are part of working, living with the loving Jesus in our heart. All right? And that's me.